and welcome back. I'm so excited that you're here today. We are talking Fast Friday tips all about burnout and the brain. So the term burnout originated from psychologist Herbert Freudenberg back in 1974, and he had been around in this New York City free clinic and was noticing these volunteers, like looking at these volunteers that were there, and they noticed three things that were common across the board, which was loss of motivation, growing sense of emotional depletion, and being cynical. And those three things really stood out to him, and that's where he got the term burnout. Find that fascinating. So you might too. But going into more of the science aspect, an institute in Sweden found evidence of workplace burnout can actually alter neural circuits. So what does that mean? It's causing a vicious cycle of neurological dysfunction. So it can have a real physical impact on the human brain. So there's a phrase, neurons that fire together, wire together. And that's essentially talking about reprogramming the brain. Because when we reprogram the brain, it can either be in a positive or negative. So it can really reduce things or it can expand. And when it reduces, it could actually be thinning and premature aging in the amygdala. And also, when it comes to our stress responses and how we deal with things day to day, it can really be impacted as well. And the parts of the brain that hold that stress response and regulate it is the ACC and the MPFC as well. So those are just really interesting terms that I wanted to throw out there today, but really understanding how the aspect of our brains can be really impacted by our stress that we experience day in, day out. So what can you do? Here's some tips of regulating and releasing stress. So the first thing is set goals and expectations. Be realistic. When we are setting goals, sometimes we have these grandiose ideas of what we want to do, and that's great. It's great to have huge goals, but it's also to be realistic of like, okay, well, maybe you can't achieve that goal in a day. What can you do in maybe a week or a month or 6 months or a year? But being realistic and kind of taking it in bite sizes versus eating the whole thing when it comes to our goals. The next thing is evaluate your needs. Be self-assertive. Understand what you need. Ask for it. Reach out to people. Make sure that you have that support network, but also being able to understand what you do need in that moment, whatever that could be. The next thing is your core values. I say this all the time, but put the important things at the top of your priority list. And the most important thing is you. So to remember that. The next thing is being able to relax and pause. Take some time for yourself. You know, this is something that continuously is hard for me, to be quite transparent. But, you know, sometimes you just need to pause and realize whatever you're dealing with in that moment, you just need to take a breath. Which brings me to my next point, but really being able to understand, like relax, and whatever that can be. It could be dancing, it could be taking a walk, it could be just really regrouping in that moment, or just getting up from where you're sitting and like moving around for a minute, or having a cup of water. But so the next and the last point for this, or tip, is being able to breathe, stretch, meditate. All it takes is 10 to 15 minutes to reset your mind and your motivation, because if we're able to just get outside for a few minutes, the fresh air can do wonders for our overall well-being, because the mind and body is super connected. So the next aspect is the connection of our brains and how burnout decreases connectivity amongst the brain. So as entrepreneurs, we are very creative. We're always solving problems. We're always like, our mind's always going. I mean, I haven't met an entrepreneur that isn't. But that's what happens when our brains are not able to connect the most when burnout is high. So it reduces that creativity. Your working memory, you're forgetting things, making mistakes more often than not. And the problem-solving skills get reduced as well, because you're not able to critically think in those moments because burnout is taking over. So what can you do to boost brain connectivity? Well, here's some tips. The first one, exercise regularly. If you're doing at least 30 minutes or more a day, that's really going to help you overall. It's those baby steps that make a big difference in the long run. You might not notice it the first day or the second day, but over time you will. Just like anything great takes time. The next thing is start a new hobby. one that requires critical thinking or physical coordination. So maybe it's like salsa dancing. I took that up recently, last few months, but like something that's really gonna drive you and be excited about. That's not maybe in your business, but like doing things outside of work and just your everyday life, switching it up can really help boost your brain connectivity as well. Read. I don't know how many people don't read, but it's really important. And often, even if it's listening to an audio book, if you have to drive a lot, you can pop it in the car. Or if you're on a walk, you can listen to it then. Or being able to just take that time and carve out reading a couple pages a day can make such a difference. So that's another great way. Next is word puzzles, or puzzles in general, like riddles, is being able to connect things that you might not be able to maybe connect before, but it just really boosts that. Like, I absolutely love puzzles just in general because it does, like, it relieves stress for sure, but it also helps me kind of figure things out, and that's how I feel like life can sometimes be a big puzzle. And then the last one is healthy diet. Be able to have proper portion sizing, so you are what you eat. If you've ever heard that term, it's a very popular term, or phrase I should say, but it's really about what we eat truly does impact us, because there's a saying, abs are made in the kitchen, because it's great to exercise, and I think it's so important, but also it's what we're eating, because that's going to affect our mood, our overall well-being, our energy levels as well. So it's really important to remember that. So how do you manage your stress so it doesn't turn into burnout? So 43% of all adults suffer adverse health issues from stress. So there's different types of stresses. So the first one is acute stress. So it might be giving a presentation. If you have a fear of public speaking, you might get that little like fear inside, butterflies inside your stomach, and that's just short term. Or you might have an argument with a significant other not often, but the one or few times that you do, it might cause a little bit of stress. Or you're running late for a meeting or an appointment. Those kinds of things are that like high feeling of stress in that short period of time. Whereas chronic stress, it could be poor sleeping habits. You're not sleeping enough on a regular basis, and that leads to irritation. You're not feeling as motivated. You're tired throughout the day. You're keeping your eyes open. You're trying to do a lot of things at the same time, and you can't because you haven't had proper sleep. It could be constantly fighting with a significant other as well. Like, it's not just one time, it becomes a pattern and very regular. That could cause a lot of stress. Being in a toxic work environment or working with toxic individuals or having toxic individuals around you can cause stress, subconsciously or consciously. So those are just some of the things that can happen. And then also another thing with stress too is just being able to really focus in on how your energy levels as well, because you could be really tired. Outside of the sleep aspect, you're just always tired or always getting sick. Your immune system starts to shut down because you're not taking care of yourself fully to the full capacity you can. And then physical signs. So a lot of physical signs start to happen if you aren't recognizing that you're stressed out. So some things that I personally have experienced, one being I had a lot of hair loss. Like, my hair was really thick. It's starting to come back now a few years later, but you can lose your hair. You can, with your teeth. So another thing is when you are stressed out, sometimes you don't even notice it because it's so subtle. So when I would get really stressed, my jaw, like I would clench my jaw and I wouldn't even realize I was doing it. But I ended up like cracking like a molar in the back of my teeth because I was so stressed out. Because I wasn't taking care of myself and I wasn't vocalizing it too. That's another thing. You're not vocalizing your needs like we were talking about earlier. It's a great tip to release that, but those are some signs. Just your energy level, you're really tired all the time. And I mean, you might drink a lot of coffee or have energy drinks or eating the right foods, but you're just constantly tired. That could be another side of burnout as well. It's like emotional and physical exhaustion. So how do you manage your stress? I would love to know in the comment section, but I know for me, when I'm stressed out, the best thing for me is to be in nature. It's being around greenery, having fresh air, just being able to see nature in any capacity. It really does help me reduce that stress. Some people, it might be painting or dancing or being able to watch a funny movie and just release that, because laughing is like the best medicine there is, but being able to really do different things that really help you. So I'd love to know what works for you, or maybe what you need, like what has been really stressful. Leave it in the comments section, because I would love to answer any questions, but also to hear from you and what has helped you through any of your stress and how you manage your stress. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe and like, and I'll see you very soon.